Alrighty then, I just got this today, shipped from Amazon, came through apparently Texas. It's a Champion 100302 hybrid inverter generator. Hybrid just means, in this case, it is an inverter generator in a standard generator frame. So I'm going to open this and we're going to go over it. Okay. Other people have opened these up on YouTube. Contains a little funnel for filling the oil, 12-volt battery charger connector, and a USB charger connector. I'm gonna have to get this out of the box and stand by. Alright, I'm gonna try to hold this camera as steady as I can. So we'll start with basically we have a pull start. Above that is a choke, and then you have an on-off switch, an eco mode switch, and the 12-volt outlet. This is a ground. As I understand it, the ground, I'd have to read the manual, but I believe the ground is only something that's used if you have this permanently mounted to a building or something. The red and black squares, these are for parallel units, and then you have an 8 amp, a 20 amp, and a 30 amp fuse that correspond to the 8 amp is for this, 30 amp is for the RV outlet, and then the 20 amp is for the 20 amp outlet. For those who don't know, a 20 amp outlet can be identified because it has this horizontal plug, and a purely 20 amp plug will have one vertical and one horizontal on it. What else you can see on this is that of course I have to put oil in it. We have the rubber vibration, isolation, whatever the hell they're called. And then this down here is for a wheel kit, optional wheel kit, which I have on order. It was an additional $44, probably kind of a bit of a rip-off. But, you know, my other generator, I built my own, and it was a lot of work. And since this one had it already, figured why not buy it. And of course on top we have a very large fill, the chain and the filter. Since this thing is carb compliant, I actually looked that up. What it means is that this, unlike most gas fill tank or gas fill caps, which are vented, this completely seals in here so that no vapors can get out. Air is allowed into the tank through this tube, which goes to a carbon filter. It was very much a pain in the ass to find information on what exactly makes a generator carb compliant, since the great state of California, who decrees all things for everyone else in the rest of the country, has decided that they want specific things on their equipment because, you know, they know more than anyone else, and you should just do what you're told, citizen. Anyways, on this side we have basically what is the generator. It's actually, and this is the muffler. And on this other side, which is covered up by this pack, this is the this is where the inverter is, and this is the carbon canister that tube goes into. Basically, all the fumes that come out of the tank have to come into that canister, and then supposedly they won't release into the environment. This is the shut-off valve, which is in one of the two off positions. Either horizontal direction will shut it off. So I'm going to reposition the unit, and we'll look at the back side. Alright, so this is the back side. And what we have here is, this is the exhaust muffler. It's pretty, actually it's a pretty extensive one. It's actually pretty big. And that is the spark arrestor. Most people don't realize that if you have a generator and you want to use it at any national forest, you must have a spark arrestor that is approved by I think the U.S. Department of Agriculture or the Forest Service, something like that. Apparently, this great dictatorship of California has decreed that you have to have one if you plan on using it pretty much anywhere that there's any kind of vegetation growing. So, you know, any field or whatever. So once again, we have the carbon filter with the tube that comes up from the tank, goes into here, and then this goes into the air filter carburetor. This carburetor supposedly has no adjustments. If you basically, according to the manual, it says that you should not adjust it, and there is no adjustments to it. One thing of note is that if you're going to use this over an altitude of 3,500 feet, you have to request a high altitude jet for the carburetor, which is installed by removing the float bowl and replacing the jet. I'm not sure if that jet costs money or if they just send you one when you request it. I'm going to request mine since I plan on using this in locations that are above 3,500 feet. Also, I don't believe this has any, now I've blinded myself, any way to drain the fuel from the tank directly. I believe, based on what I understand, is if you want to drain the fuel, you remove this screw right here, or this bolt right here, and that would be where you would drain the tank. I would prefer that there would be a drain up here, and as far as I know, this doesn't come out. I'll have to research that. all the manual tells you is that you should drain if you're going to store this for a long time, you should turn off the fuel, and of course your fuel should have a stabilizer in it. You should turn off the fuel and then run the engine until the float bowl runs dry. And if you're going to store it for longer than about 3 months with fuel in it, or with actually just for longer than 3 months, that you should drain all the fuel from the tank. I would agree with that, especially if you're using fuel with ethanol in it. Ethanol fuel is pretty nasty stuff and really shouldn't be used in these. If you have access to a an ethanol free source of gasoline, I suggest you stock up 5 or 10 gallons at least of that. It will last longer with a fuel stabilizer, and it's a lot better for the engines. I think that's about it. It's too late in the day for me to take this out and start it up. I will probably do that tomorrow. Of course, to you it'll just be a cut. I think that's it for now. Alrighty then. It's the next day. It's I don't know, 8 something in the morning. I've been kind of dawdling. I put it outside on my back porch, and I have attached one of these little cheapo eBay RPM gauges and hour meters. I have a kilowatt. I have a plug strip that's turned off, and what I'm going to do is do the run in the whatever. They recommend running it for the first 5 hours at no more than half load, and then changing the oil. You're supposed to vary the load through that 5 hours for reasons that I don't remember right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to start it up and check the sine wave and a few other things, and then I'm going to start it on a load and check on it every once in a while. So my plan is I'm going to run it for half an hour at 875 watts, and then a half an hour at 1750, and then just repeat that. Every half hour I'm going to change the load, and then halfway through going to run the generator for 1 hour at 875 watts and reverse it, so that when I finish up in the last half hour, it's 875 watts, and there'll be a cool down period. I've loaded this up with 5 liters of gasoline. I did some calculations last night, and based on information in the book on runtime, I think I should get about 1 hour per liter, give or take. So I filled it up I put 5 liters of gas, which is just a little over, it's like 1.3 gallons. In order to generate the full load, I have this little heater. It has 2 settings, 750 watts and 1500 watts. And to fine tune the load, I have a 100 watt light bulb and a fan that will blow over the generator to help keep it cool, and also I can use that to fine tune the load also, or a little bit. So I won't be able to talk much over the sound of the generator, even though it's not loud, but So I'm going to start this up. You may notice that, or it may possibly can tell that I'm sitting. I'm on a milk crate, and we're going to try and start this sitting down. From what I've seen, it's a very easy engine to start. Oh, come on. All right. Switcher on. Plug strip off. Choke out. Oscilloscope removed. And let's give her a pull. Pretty good looking sine wave there. That's nice. So we've got about 860 watts. Fan is on, heater's on, and I'm going to let this run for half an hour. I'm going to set a timer, and I won't do any more updates until we're completely done. All right, so basically one sort of update. I'm standing about 30 or 40 feet and talking in a normal voice. Now I am on the exhaust side of the engine, which would be the loud side, but it's actually really quiet, especially compared to my other generator. See you later. Alright, it's been 5 hours and I'm going to get this thing up high off the ground so I can drain the oil, and be back in a second or two. Okay, so here's the update. I ran it for 5 hours. I did modify the program a little bit. Oh, by the way, if there's wind noise or whatever, I'm outside and it's a little warm and I've got a fan going. Anyways, I did modify the program a little bit. From what I said, I was going to alternate 800 and some odd watts by 1700 watts. I did that until the middle hour when I went to 350 watts, left it for an hour, and then cycled 1700 watts and back to 850 watts. And then the last half hour, I just removed all load from it and let it cool down with the fan on it. And before I drain the oil, I'm going to drain the gas and see what kind of, how much was left, how much my predictions of how long it would last actually takes. So I put exactly 5 liters in here, and it's going to probably take a while for that to drain out through that little hole. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when it's finished. Okay, give or take a little bit that's spilled. This is how much gas was left over of the 5 liters. Roughly, if it'll just calm down here, roughly 350 milliliters. So, and I did alter the things a bit, so it would have used less gas. So it would have probably, if I had stuck to my original plans, except at the last half hour, turned it off, or turned off all the load, it probably would have run out of gas during the cool down phase, which would have been fine because then I wouldn't have had to drain it. But that's a pretty good estimate. So let me readjust and I'm going to drain the oil. Alright, I don't know how well you guys can see. Not that anyone's watching. Stand by. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Yeah, that bolt was on there tight. So I put in, one of the manufacturer recommends putting in 0.6 of a liter, 600 milliliters, or 0.6 of a quart. 0.6 of a quart is approximately 20 ounces. It's a little more. So let's see how much oil comes out after we put 600 milliliters in. See if how much possibly oil it burned off. See if I can get a little more out of this. Legs on this tripod suck. Okay, so we've got about 535 or so milliliters, 525 thereabouts. So it burned off about 125 milliliters. That's if I really put in that much. I filled it according to the manufacturer's recommendation of where it was on the threads, because at the time I didn't have a measuring cup to do it. Let me dump out. Oh, by the way, this oil was almost completely clear when I put it in. You'll see what I mean. Let me dump this in my little oil recycling deal. Then dump in 600 milliliters of new 10W30, which you can't see because I'm not holding up the So here's the difference. That's new oil, kind of golden brown and delicious. So we're gonna see if the way they say to put the oil in, the amount matches appears on the threads. I was using the measurements on the side of the oil container, which apparently aren't very accurate. So there's two ways to do this. One is with the dipstick, and they're not really clear on how to do it with the dipstick, other than you don't screw it in, you just put it in the hole and then pull it out again. You don't screw it in at all. And based on that, it's full. I would say it's a little high, but like I said, there's conflicting information in the manual. The manual shows that oil, the highest the oil should be, is at the bottom of the threads, but somewhere else I think I read that it should be about 2 threads from the top, and that's what it is with the 600 milliliters that I just put in. So I think that's it. The only thing I got to do now is just put this thing up until I actually need it. There's the hour meter. It says 4.9 hours. So almost exactly 5. Close enough.